Well, given that it is Thanksgiving weekend, I could have pulled the ultimate lazy sermon and said, Jesus said, stay woke, amen. And that is what he said. But I figured you probably deserved a little bit more than just that. This passage is connected to last year. Even though we've turned over a new liturgical year, we're starting over with Advent 1. The reality is we live in an unbroken chain. So there is this thread of connection back to last week and the week before. You know, we heard about temple destruction a few weeks ago. And last week we saw the ultimate revelation on this earth of Christ's love for all humanity, God's love for all humanity taking place on the cross. And this week we go back to post-resurrection, end times, eschatological readings. What's going on? What's going on? I thought we were preparing for Christmas. Well, we prepare for the second Advent on the first Sunday of Advent every year. Now, this reading has been interpreted in interesting ways, shall we say. You know, 2 will be in the field, 1 will be taken, and 1 will be left behind. 2 will be grinding at the mill, and 1 taken and 1 left behind. How many of you have heard of the Left Behind books and movies, right? All right. If you want some Christian sci-fi fanfic, great. But it's not biblical, and the rapture is not in the Bible. It's simply not there. But this passage has been interpreted through that lens culturally, that being left behind is not a good thing. Right? Being taken is a good thing, right? But that is not how Jesus's original hearers would have heard this particular teaching, because he frames it with the story of Noah, right? He frames it and he said, the coming of the Son of Man will be like in the days of Noah. What happened with Noah? What'd he do? He built a boat. He took 2 of every kind. And he got into the boat and they all laughed at him and thought he was, you know, a little out of his head, right? And then the flood came. Now, the story of the flood is not a unique story. It is a borrowed story from the ancient Near East. The Epic of Gilgamesh talks about a great flood. And even Native American tribes tell a story of a great flood, and the Wakan woman who took 2 of every kind in the great canoe to save them. So there's something about a primordial flood, probably at the end of the last ice age, that crept into origin stories all around the world. So we get our origin story of Noah, who gets into the boat, and who is taken away in the flood?
Evil.
Yeah, all the evil gets wiped off, the evildoers, right? And then all the evil gets swept away. And who's left behind? Noah and his family. So is it good to be left behind? It doesn't mean you've lost God's favor. In fact, righteous Noah had God's favor. So our modern reading that comes through this lens of cultural rapture theology gets it all kind of backwards. Being left behind was the sign of God's favor. The evil was swept away. And Jesus says this will be what it will be like when the Son of Man comes at an unexpected hour. And so his lesson to the disciples was keep awake. So Jesus said, be woke. Pay attention. Because that's really what woke means. I know it's been vilified in the press. It's been politicized. It's been turned into some people call this woke ideology. It's not an ideology. It's a state of consciousness. And not only is it from Jesus, there was a guy about 500 years earlier. You might have heard of him, Siddhartha Gautama, also known as the Buddha. And the eightfold path to enlightenment included waking up, being awake, being aware. So this isn't new. And Jesus says, stay awake. Paul says it in his letter too. Now is the time to be awake. What does this mean? I mean, obviously we can't be awake 24/7. We do have to get our 8 hours of sleep, right? Some people need more, some people need less, but you do need to sleep. Being awake is about being attentive to what is going on around you, knowing what your obligations as a Christian are to what's going on around you. Being awake also means paying attention to things that, quite frankly, you might not want to pay attention to. Things that overwhelm you, things that grieve you, things that trouble you. Rather than putting our hands over our eyes and our hands over our ears and shutting the world out, Jesus invites us to engage with the pain of the world, but also with the joy of this world. Because these end times eschatological kinds of readings are not some, like the rapture would put it, some celestial evacuation plan to go somewhere else so that we avoid the coming tribulation. The coming tribulation is here. It's always been here. The world has been a troubled place for a very long time. And Jesus invites us to open our eyes and see all of that, both in its splendor and at times its horror, and to respond with compassionate hearts to those things that are not walking in the way of God. There is always something we can do to alleviate suffering, to protest injustice. That's what Jesus is talking about with being awake. We often turn this into a personal salvation thing because we come from a culture that is very individualistic and it's all about me and my Jesus and whether I go to heaven when I die. That is not the point. N.T. Wright recently wrote a piece on that about what if going to heaven when you die isn't the point? And oh boy, did the evangelicals come out of the woodwork to slam him on that. But in truth, N.T. Wright is of the evangelical wing of Anglicanism, and he was right, because it isn't the point. It's not an escape plan for after you die. It's for how we walk and live in the world right now, remaining awake, remaining attentive, remaining connected to this world, but always knowing that we live in it, but we're not of it. Listening to the call of Christ to reach out in compassion to those who are being harmed and to those in power who can do something about it. And so, my friends, this first Sunday of Advent, stay woke. It's a Jesus thing. Stay woke, pay attention, doing what you can. As we remember the next coming of Christ, we will be engaged and we will be judged at that time on how we engage the world that God loved so much.